And the first speaker is Jill Bergman. She's an educator, and she's a kangaroula and a doula from Cape Town in South Africa. And she's also very much involved in the immediate kangaroo care studies, which are, well, going on in 5 different developmental countries. And I think we will hear more about that now.
Yeah, a little bit. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I really feel privileged to be able to be here and to speak to you people. And it's so wonderful to learn so much from so many different people and to be working. We are all working for the same thing. So I have my little Temba, my little doll, to come and help me. So this is the little baby I work with. Just to mention that I am very much working on the third world. I'm working in the developing world. I'm not working in very, very sophisticated ICUs at all. So when I'm making statements, please know that I'm speaking from the third world, so don't be offended if I'm saying something that isn't the same as your unit. Okay. So, pleasurable feeding for premature infants, and how can we really make that work for our babies? And this is not working. Is that working? And that is not working. Kan du ordna det så fortsätter jag på det här. Okay, so my topic for today is how immediate skin-to-skin contact can stimulate suckling and breast milk and breastfeeding. And I speak from a kangaroula's viewpoint. I'm speaking from the baby's viewpoint. So as a kangaroula, I am advocating for the baby very actively. Thank you. Okay. So what I am doing as a kangaroula is working specifically on a very practical way to protect the bubble of the family, the bubble of mother, father, and baby. And I find this a really helpful picture because then I can say I'm not going to be working on the whole area. I'm just focusing on protecting that unit and coming with information that is going to be helpful for the baby. So the doctor's doing what the doctors need to do. At a normal birth, this was a full-term birth, the nurse has to fill in lots of forms. There are always too many forms. I'm sure you have that here too. And I'm there protecting the bubble of the family. It really is family-centered care on a very practical basis. Here is a family at in the operating room, but it is still the bubble of the family. And how can we make it family-centered care? Here, the two are not talking to each other, unfortunately. I'll just go on the one here. I'll just go here. Okay, they're going to restart it here. No, that's Nels's, this is mine. Not really breastfeeding. So John Lynn said the family is born in the labour ward or in the operating room. On the operating table, this was twins that I had the privilege of being with, or in a caesarean section also. I feel very strongly that the mother at birth, and especially for a preterm birth, the mother often feels disempowered and she's concentrating on so many things. She often has a lot of pain, and she can't focus on learning how to breastfeed straight away. So what I do is I'm helping support the baby and watching the baby's capacity all the time, and I'm showing it to the father. I'm teaching the father to be observing his baby from the first second of birth. And I'm showing how I'm helping, and then the next time I step back and I put my hands behind my back and I say, okay, now what you can do is I'm supporting the dad to be ready to be supportive. And then you can leave because you know the father knows how to help. So, why is immediate skin-to-skin contact so important? It's our basic biology. And what I want to suggest is what we can do with the premature baby even, if we can keep the premature baby with the mother, put the baby straight onto the mother, the breathing stays stable, the baby is warm, the smell is familiar, they're hearing mum's voice, mum's heartbeat. The arms of mother are around the baby. They're getting the healthy microbiota from her skin. I am not waiting until the baby has been taken away, destabilized, and then we're trying to play catch up all the time. We're trying to get them stable. I'm saying, can we in any way bring the baby here and then bring the oxygen that's needed? But don't take them away because then they destabilize, then we've got to play catch up. Just give the care here. They won't get as cold. So if the baby needs oxygen, bring it to the baby on the mother. Dry the baby really well, gently but well, and cover with pre-warmed dry cloths. That's really, really important. And in the third world, we may think it's warm, but it's not really warm as the baby was inside. But there's a lovely picture that we use from Peter Hartman in Australia, and it's showing the mother's breasts are the warm place for that baby to be. The mother's breasts can change to warm the baby if the baby's cold, and the mother's breasts can sink in temperature if her baby is too hot. Isn't that amazing? So Bob White, who is familiar to this audience, says future NICU design should recognize that the baby must spend most of its time in its mother's arms. 2004. We haven't quite got there yet. So, why is it so important? Because the opposite, which is separation, if I take the baby away, he's been warm, contained, cuddled, held. Suddenly, it is a cold environment, the baby cries, it is stressed, the breathing gets irregular, the baby gets cold, they're waving their arms, they're using up their energy, and preterms don't have a lot of energy to lose. They don't have a lot of extra fat, and it's hard to get them to stabilize again. So this is just showing when the baby is on the mother, it is together. We'll get there. The baby on the mother is very much more stable. So the baby needs the buffering protection of adult support. And the little things that we do can make a huge difference. We can't change our genes that we get from our parents, but there is a window of opportunity at birth that we can protect the baby from stress. It is important because it's going to prevent epigenetic changes and maladaptation to the strange environment called the outside world. The baby's there too early. So just a story, these twins in Tanzania were separated from mother for an hour after birth. They were supposed to be included in the trial that we were doing. Nils happened to walk past and find them, and then they were cared for very efficiently by Björn and Dr. Naburi. Look at the arm. I'm not happy. I'm not comfortable. We were trying to keep it a very calm environment, but the fans were going. There were people everywhere talking loudly, and the babies would jerk. They're not stable. Put that same baby onto the mother. Straight away, the eyes open. I'm putting the baby down prone. The baby would say, Temba would say to me, please put me this way up. I'm a mammal. Hey, Jeff? It's a mammal. Baby's upside down. I'm going to have my stomach eaten. I'm falling out of my tree. Okay? Put the baby this way up, and what they invariably do is even a little preemie can start to wriggle towards the breast. So the baby would say, please put me prone. That baby is competent. It's 1,600 grams, but it's competent in the right place. Okay, so it's not only Stavanger that could do that. It was 1180. But 29 plus 4. It wasn't just Stavanger that could do it. We were in Tanzania, and I was allowed to go into the operating room. And here it was the mother had hypertension, and the baby was put directly onto the mother and was warmed, was covered with warm dry cloths, and stayed there. And as small as it was, it started to move towards the breast and started licking the breast, started getting ready. Humans are mammals. We seem to forget that it sits so deeply in us. So that is some of the exciting work that we get to do. Okay, how are we going to express? Now, I thought the men would be a bit freaked out if I started stripping. So what I'll do is, here's my breast. So when we have the breast here, you can see the breast here. Okay, there's the nipple. So what we're doing straight away at birth, even if it's a prem birth, you want to catch that the first hour. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your fingers not just here to try and squeeze out milk. It's much better to put these two fingers further apart, either side of the nipple, and press back towards the ribs. Maybe you know that already and work with it, but you press quite hard, repeatedly, and then go at each quadrant. And you find that then you can go back to the back of the ribs, squeeze, and bring it forward. And that milk you can give to the baby straight away. And it means that the baby doesn't get hypoglycemic straight away, which is incredible, and you've kick-started the breast milk production. Okay. American Academy of Pediatrics. So given the documented short and long-term medical and neurodevelopmental advantages of breastfeeding, infant nutrition should be considered a public health issue and not just a lifestyle choice. But it isn't always easy to get these tiny prems to feed. Sorry, let me just try and see if these two can talk to each other. Okay. So I've showed you how to start colostrum. Here is a mother in the trial. It is with, we're doing it in India, and she has twins. So we're starting skin to skin in the trial immediately, as we showed in the film from Stavanger. We're also trying to do it continuously. So here, the babies, these two twins were on the mother, and that also stimulates the milk production. So these twins in Delhi, it's safe, it's a safe technique, it's non-stretch material, the white is non-stretch material, that is non-stretch material, and then it is safe for the mother to go to sleep, as well as the baby, because the airways, the babies are both here with their airways extended just a little bit, so that we've got a patent airway. So we were doing that. One of the babies started wriggling and squirming, hungry. So the kangaroula here, in this trial we're calling them KMC supporters, helping one twin to feed, while the other one carried on sleeping, getting the mother used to breastfeeding. The next time we asked the mother, her mother-in-law, so the grandmother, to come and support the baby. This is from Ghana. It's really, really important to catch that immediate expression of breast milk in the first hour, especially if a mother's had a cesarean, because they haven't even gone into labor and they don't have the hormones to help. And then you collect it. This mother had fairly ample breasts, shall we say. So we could get the milk, and we got a syringe nearly full of milk. So if you can get immediate expression, you kickstart, you use the hormones of labor to get the milk going. So it's not waiting for 3-4 days later when the milk gets going. Start immediately and already you get a lot. So that baby didn't need anything else. It didn't have a drip. It didn't need it. It got a lot from mother. And we collected it in a syringe and ran with it inside the packet that the syringe had been in, back up to the ICU where the baby was. And it could coat the mouth, just a small amount to coat the mouth with the mother's microbiota, and then it got the rest through a nasogastric tube. So express immediately within the first hour, you get the oxytocin spike. Express often, every hour. Every hour, not every 3 hours, not every 4 hours. You want to, and one of the things that I've worked with so much in the last 6 years is to say every single hour. If you're feeding that baby every time the baby wakes up, which is usually about an hour, sometimes 2, sometimes 1, sometimes less than 1, let the baby suckle and you will get your milk going much sooner. And for preterms, it's really important that you should be providing an excess. So put that away, store it, because you want to up the supply. It's very much harder to up the supply later on. So we use the mother's microbiota. This is the study that Parker did, and so suckling should be immediate. So different ways to feed a prem. I'm not going into intravenous and through a nasogastric tube. I'm skipping those. I'll just show you briefly. Here are the tubes. We don't use a plunger in the syringe. The mothers can get good at that, but they need to be taught to do it slowly. Because otherwise the baby's going to get aspiration. And we saw lots of aspiration as well. Cup feeding also very slowly, and it's important that the baby is far more upright, not lying down. And the way I explain it is if I have my 2 fingers and I say, okay, if the baby's lying down, that fluid can leak into the next, the 2 pipes are very close together, and then you've got aspiration risk, and then that's going to be really complicated for the baby. So trying to explain to the parents exactly what is needed. Supplementary feeding at the breast while the baby's getting an orogastric tube. This was a delightful story. The bigger twin, they're twins, one little one, one bigger one. The bigger one was taken away by the nurse and then brought when it was hungry. The little one hadn't been taken away. I could chill here. And I could be with my mother. And I was moving, the little one was moving the mouth and was latching very beautifully. Look on that side. Little one latched. And on this side, the nurse is desperately trying to get the baby to latch. Leave the baby in the right place and biology will act. Okay. This little one, it's a little bit wriggly. You can't see very good focus, but this 26-weeker can suckle. And also from Chi, little extra oxygen was given, and the baby was on the mother, warmed, covered, peaceful, quiet, completely stable, on mum. 26-weeker, that's quite early. And they gave it a little earbud with mother's milk to suckle. That baby's not breastfeeding, but that's pleasurable feeding. I'm getting mum's milk straight away. and it's showing that this baby has capacity even at 26 weeks. This little Prem is now ready to go home. So we can look at different kinds of food. I'm not going to go into formula details, but just to say, in the third world, it is not applicable. When we lived in Zimbabwe, we had pathogens too numerous to mention. Water supplies are unreliable. The mothers thin out the milk because they want it to last long because it's so expensive, etc. So formula in the third world is not really an option. Why so much emphasis on breast milk? It's the right milk for the right species at the right gestational age. It changes over time. We can't ever come close to that with formula. So breast milk and breastfeeding is our basic biology. You've heard about it this morning. Thank you. Breast milk is sustainable. It changes, it gives comfort, it is pleasurable feeding. That sucking reflex, that really calms the child. So, how are we going to get a tiny preterm to breastfeed? And the answer is the same as every baby breastfeeding. We want to get the baby skin to skin. We want the baby supported. So these are just what I call my breastfeeding bites. Everybody goes like this because that's the pictures they've seen. But this, the mother's shoulder goes up and down, it doesn't work. So for a preterm, I often put them on here, then the baby feels completely supported. So skin to skin, you can put the baby prone on the mother if the mother is down. You can put a weighting here. If you push in the head, if you pushed my head in porridge, I would reverse. So you must be very careful not to push in the head. I'm pulling in at the shoulder. I'm waiting for the wide mouth, not this mouth. I'm waiting for, I want a big mouth. And if you are holding like this, you can pull in at the shoulders. I support the head weight. I must check that my spine and my head are in line. I must check that the baby is close and not lying like this with the arm in the way, because I can't suck over my shoulder, and that's what we're asking the baby to do. And then you must make a hamburger in line with the baby's lips. So when you eat a hamburger, you eat it like that. You don't eat it, I can't get at it. Okay, so in line with the baby's lips. Here you can't really see what the baby's doing, so I usually go from underneath and hold it in line with the baby's lips, which are here. Okay, so those principles are very, very standard, even for preterm babies. And for preterms, it's essential to watch and read the baby's state. Don't try and do it when the baby's stressed out or exhausted. Read their state, read when there's this quiet alert and the baby's looking around and their little movements. Perfect time to start feeding. Hedelise Als has done this wheel of behavior, and very helpful to get health professionals or nurses and parents to put a time when the baby's doing each thing, because then they can see progress. We've made a simplification of Bergman Persson, also from Sweden, that wheel of sensory inputs, and we use that quite regularly. It's helpful to tell the parents, the whole wheel isn't turning yet, but it's going slowly round. We're going one little segment by the next, and then they can see that there's progress. So one step at a time, and often the babies go better facing downwards. They may not have the strength to suckle, so expressing a small amount into the baby's mouth, and then let them suckle and cope with that amount, that a little bit of feeding, and then wait, and then express a little bit more into the mouth when they've got a good grip. Read the baby's eyes open. Watch the baby, read the state. So early breastfeeding cues, I always tell the parents, and I'll go quickly through them. They should have had a good sleep. They should be quiet, alert, eyes open. Look at the eyes, hand. fingers are a key to breastfeeding. You were talking about that as well, when the hands start moving. So look at the hands. They've been practicing in utero, and look at this. The curled tongue is a feeding cue, a little curled tongue. Wide open mouth is a sudden movement. And then these were pictures that Nils took. You've got to be very quick because the baby makes this cobra lunge for the breast. And the baby is opening its mouth. Wait for the wide mouth. Don't be satisfied with a little mouth. Even a preterm can open their mouth really, really wide. Express a little bit of milk. The baby can smell it. Smell is the strongest sense for the babies. And that intense eye contact. You see the intense looking at the breast. Stretching out an arm and going for the breast. Strong latch. Most of the areola inside the mouth is really important. And that's quite difficult because we sometimes have mothers that have got very large breasts, so it's very difficult to get all of the breast into a tiny preterm mouth, but not just the nipple of the mouth. Okay, we'll go through those quickly. We need to start straight away. So some common practices that make it really difficult is when we're not expressing straight away and we put an IV line for feeding into the baby instead of letting them breastfeed, and we only feed 3 hourly or 4 hourly. We're going against our biology, and then we wonder why we've got problems. So Tanzania, I just want to say a brief thing about the Tanzania. We had a room, 100 babies, all in little open cots. Every 3 hours, the mothers could come in, could sit on a normal school bench, you know, the plain simple bench. They'd sit in front of their baby and they would start to express milk, and then sometimes they would start to feed, but they lived 2 floors away. They came every 3 hours. Then they changed the baby's nappy and then they would go for 3 hours and then come back again. No wonder they're not really getting things going. Most of those babies had a nasogastric tube and the mortality was really, really high. They can only go home when they are gaining weight on breastfeeding, and they're not going to get there because everything's working against them. And will they survive when they get home if they don't have breast milk? We hope so, but maybe not. So I'm going to skip through to this. This is a story of a family that I had, a wonderful couple. This is in a private hospital in South Africa. Very good care, very medical, very high-tech, quite expensive. Baby was going to be born, mother had HELLP syndrome, baby was born, had a cesarean, baby crashed. Doctor concerned, father was a doctor, knew exactly what was going on, extra oxygen for the baby, very, very concerned. It took a dash up to ICU, everything had to be organized and quick, and this picture I think says it all. Here's this father, the baby has got all the technology it needs, but the baby can't be with mother. And the nurses weren't helping the baby to be with mother or with father. They'd say, okay, but it's time to go home now. You people, please don't take for granted that you've got such wonderful units where the parents can stay. It's not like that in the rest of the world. Okay, but we worked hard. The mother worked very hard expressing, and this was a wonderful day when the baby started breastfeeding. Proper rhythmic suckling. Here we are, protecting the bubble of that, and this is the little baby now. So how much milk is needed? 1 tablespoon for a full-term baby. Quite a lot less if it's for a prem. We've already spoken about small stomachs, but I want to look that breastfeeding is brain wiring. When a baby is breastfeeding, this is a full-term baby, but when a baby is breastfeeding, every single sense is involved. They're hearing mum's voice. They are moving with mother as she's rocking gently. The back is feeling mother's arm. They are warmed on mother's front. They've got skin to skin. Their hands are touching mother's breast, which is soft. They're smelling the milk. They're tasting the milk. They're seeing mother's eyes. This is an amazing, developmentally supportive environment. Why don't we use it more? The more skin to skin, the more breastfeeding. The more triglycerides. The more triglycerides, the more myelin. The more myelin, the higher the IQ. Speeds the messages, but far more than that, it's about the emotional connectedness between the mother and the baby. And I love the psalm. It says, I learned trust on my mother's breasts. This baby is looking into mother's eyes. They're skin to skin. They're feeling safe. Prefrontal orbital complex says, let me approach. So I open my eyes and I make contact with mother. And you ladies probably know that when the mother and the baby, when you make contact with your child when they're breastfeeding, the baby, the whole body kind of pulls together. They make contact, and that is the neural circuitry of bonding. It is much more than just the food. It is pleasurable feeding. It is their whole security. And this last one, these little babies are they're twins. They were 33 weeks, and they've got their hands on either side of the breast, like, this is my breast, I own it. And then look at the perfect place to go to sleep, where I can peacefully digest the food without any stress. I can be there, I can digest it well. That is pleasurable feeding. Thank you.